This is Michael with Diamond Seed Astrology. So we know that ancient peoples, especially Greeks and Romans, and I'm sure many other the ancient peoples who were not as distinct often as we think they were from each other, had this fascination with syncretism, with trying to see how certain gods and mythologies would tended to translate across different, ethnic traditions. The Germanic tradition, traditions, several of them, the Greek traditions, the Roman traditions, some of the Middle Eastern traditions, and all of these various the Egyptian, Semitic traditions, Babylonian. All of these had, a lot of them had contact with each other due to the fact that people have been moving around over the course of tens of thousands of years. That some of the tribes that we consider to be Germanic were, in fact, in the Middle East at one time or another, or at least parts of them were. And some of these groups were more, shall we say, religious or following some other type of delineation other than ethnic, and that these people were bound together by other things than ethnicity. And we should be aware of that people have been, in fact, interacting with each other. So we, a lot of we see people trying to put maps, ancient maps together where this tribe was, where that tribe was in different places. And not that there's no value in that, there certainly is. That it tends to create a mistaken idea that there were nations and extremely distinct and hard and fast lines between people when there weren't. Not that, again, it's a complicated issue. So, as I was saying, ancient people were very interested in syncretism. And why were they interested in that? Because they wanted to, at least many people wanted to find sort of a root, common ancestral cosmology, a set of ideas and mythologies that they could see across cultures, and therefore they were looking for a root to of human experience. So this idea of looking for a root, looking for a source, is something that you find in Plato. You find it in Greek philosophy, where you have this idea of emanations from an original source. So this is, it's really important to understand this is the way that ancient people, or at least a certain number of ancient people, thought that there was some sort of source, divine source from which human experience emanates. And there are sort of layers or levels of emanation that are closer to the divine source, and we as human beings in this plane of existence are relatively far away from the original source. And the gods, according to Proclus and other philosophers, would say that the gods are closer, and therefore they're more like a more pure archetypal expression of the truth of our reality. So when I speak of Odin and Freya and Thor and other Norse and Germanic gods and their stories, and I talk about them in comparison to the archetypes of the Hellenic world, and how we've received these archetypes in our our current understanding of astrology and mythology, we should be looking the same way they looked at these archetypes to try and find common behaviors, common interactions, especially. And this is something that I think is not stressed enough. That I don't see much, talk about this or attempt to, really to explore this anywhere near as much as we should. Is that these archetypes are defined by each other. They do not make any sense unless you start to understand all of them, because they all interact with each other. They interact in singly with each other, so like in pairs or in trios or in in groups of four or more. So they're going to start to have these relationships, and we find this with the dignities in astrology that tell us how and why, or at least they show us. They don't really tell us how and why. But we can infer and try and understand the how and why of the dignity. Why is a planet in rulership in a certain place? Why are they in exaltation in a certain place? Why are they in fall in a certain place? What do these things really mean? We need to explore the meaning of domicile, of being in one's kingship or queenship, so to speak. We have political metaphors for these things, but we need to not stop at the political metaphors, because a word like exaltation is not actually really a political term. It's some ancient authors talked about exaltation as being like a magistrate, a visiting magistrate in a foreign territory where they can make law, and they basically are not as responsible for the territory, but they hold very high prestige, and their word is considered to be law in those territories. So again, this is, we have political metaphors, but exaltation is a word that's found in the Bible. When Jesus went to, he was, when he died on the cross, according to the Bible, and he returned, he was exalted. So this is clearly a theological term. And kingship is another term that's used in the Bible, obviously, because Jesus was king of the Jews. Or was he? We're not really sure what that means, because he's also considered to be a poor shepherd, and we need to really parse out what was really going on. The works of Ralph Ellis are a place everybody should go to try and understand that question of what that means about Jesus' kingship. So, without going too far into that, the point that I'm trying to get at here is that when I am comparing, say, Odin to Mercury and Freya to Venus, and then looking at their relationship as it's described in the mythology, and then transposing that to astrology, not just going by what we understand from Greek mythology or Roman mythology, but rather to use these the stories from other areas where we see these hypostases for these archetypes, and they're slightly different in different places, sort of. Their depth of character, their importance in the overall cosmology varies in different places. So, Mercury, Thoth, Odin, and other gods of this ilk, and looking at Thor versus Jupiter, and of various other Tyr and Aries or Mars. We really have to look at a wide range of mythological presentations of these archetypes, and Interestingly, I was listening to audiobook by Gerald Massey recently, and he was actually speaking about the Mars archetype having been a son of a goddess who was actually married to I believe it was refused a conjugal relationship with his mother, which is the conjugal, this incestuous relationship was something that was normal in this mythological setting, and I assume that means it was, we need to question whether mythology necessarily reflects societal norms, or if it's trying to tell us something else. There's always metaphorical reasons why, there's anything happens. There's multiple levels of reasons why things happen in mythology, and we need to always be aware that we don't just stop with one set of metaphors for anything. The same with astrology. We can't stop with one set of metaphors. As I said, we have political metaphors. We need to have theological metaphors because clearly, as I've said in previous videos, it's clear to me that the cross is, that we understand. If Christianity, was used previously by other cultures, the Celtic cross, and it represents not only the four directions, but the equinoxes and the solstices, which in many ways are the same as the directions. That's a point that I probably will speak about a bit more in depth later. So this is, I feel the need to really explicate this point and get into this deeply, because there's just not enough discussion of what these things mean. If we're going to be using astrology as a method of divination, and we're not really getting into, we're happy with just sort of some sort of a set of keywords that come through pop astrology that are not necessarily untrue, but if we don't start rooting around and looking for more basic root meanings and metaphors that sit behind these the more popular and facile definitions and keywords, we're really going to be stuck in something that's we're not giving this the respect it is due. People trust and believe in astrology, and astrology comes out of a paradigm, an ancient paradigm that was radically different than that of modern times. And there's tons of several thousand years of overlays of cultural bias and forgetting and just a complete, what we're prepared to see in astrology is a fraction of what was originally intended, and I truly believe that we're generally not, we keep astrology as this pseudoscience. It's regarded as a pseudoscience. It's regarded somewhere, as pop culture fluff for people who are, willing to believe anything. And there's that with astrology, that there's definitely that element. But the psychological aspects, the archetypal aspects, and I don't need to I don't need to explain, the work of Jung and the value of archetypes in our understanding of the world and our understanding of ourselves. just cannot be underestimated. So these archetypal territories become occluded, they become limited, they become distorted over time by these cultural overlays. And if the if the masculine archetypes are in retreat in cultural in our cultural landscape, if they're not being if they're not valued, then the feminine archetypes are also losing, because they're no longer have what they need to define themselves, because the masculine and the feminine are defined by each other, and what nature gives us. They're not avatars, things that we can make up and make believe. We can try to express what's truly inside of us. That's a brilliant thing. We should all be doing that. But we really can't do that at the expense of a truly basic understanding of our biological makeup. And as I've said in other videos, the basic thing that astrology is looking at is fertility of the year, fertility and infertility, extroversion and introversion, and masculine and feminine. Those are all these are all expressions of the Hermetic principles. And again, as I was saying, ancient people understood that the basic idea of how the universe works is that there's a source and there's emanations coming from that source. And if you then understand from the Hermetic principles that what is outside of us is also within, and within us, you will very, it's maybe difficult for people to understand, but that source is actually inside of you. That source and the emanations from that source are completely coming from you as well, and that source level of reality is inside of you, and you're so to speak, inside outside. When we talk on this level, is it's a bit mind bending to really think about. But anyway, so this is the important thing. This is all within you, and it's above you, it's below you, and it's within you and without you. So yeah. So let's we can. This is something that we need to keep coming back to and talking about more and more, because we can flesh this out and start to find that perhaps. I could be wrong about all of this, that ancient people didn't really understand much, that they were really stupid, and, they were all just primitives, and, there's really no reason. It's all, we're all headed towards a future of post-human and transhumanism, and that's really where we're going. We don't get to transcend or ascend unless we go inward. You go to get out, you go in. To go in, you go out. There's no getting away from that or getting around it. All right, that is this video for now. My name is Michael. I am with Diamond Seed Astrology. I'm a consulting astrologer, and I have a class coming up which is called Persephone's Zodiac, which will get into all of this in much greater detail. And we will be exploring everything that I've just spoken of and much more, and the bases for my ideas within ancient astrology. People who are astrologers and people who are not astrologers but are very interested in the occult, in this particular way of approaching it. Hopefully these things will appeal to you, and you can find more information soon at my website at michaelmsuter.com. All right, thank you.